Okay then, crew. For our main maths job today, I said we were going to use some of our mathsy knowledge, but we're also going to use some of our understanding of the world knowledge. And that's because today we are going to investigate floating and sinking. Now, what does floating and sinking mean? So, if we think about a pirate ship, where does a pirate ship go? Well done, it goes on the sea, doesn't it? And what does a pirate ship have to do for it to be able to go on the sea? Well done, it has to be able to float. When something floats, it means that it can stay on top of the water without going down to the bottom. If it goes down to the bottom, it sinks. But if it floats, it stays on top and then it can move across the water. Now, it's really important for a pirate ship to be able to float, isn't it? Otherwise, pirates wouldn't be able to travel anywhere. That's how they travel, isn't it? On top of the water across the sea in their ships. So today, we're going to think about different materials and whether they float, so whether they stay on top of the water or whether they sink, whether they go down to the bottom. So, to explore this today, you are going to need to get yourself a container with some water in. Now, I found a jug that I can use, and my jug's see-through because I thought that would be really helpful for us to look at together. But if you haven't got a see-through one, that's fine. You could use the bath, you could use a washing up bowl, you could use a bucket, anything, because you'll still be able to see from the top whether it sinks or whether it floats, okay? Any kind of container for today's job is absolutely fine. Then what I'd like you to do is to collect 10 different objects from around your home. Now, try and choose some different objects that are made from different materials, okay? So, for example, I've gone for a little model elephant, and that's made from wood. Okay, I've got a gem, and that's made from glass. Right, I've got a teaspoon, and what's a teaspoon made from? Do you know? Well done, that's made from metal. I've got a counter from one of my games, and that one's made from wood, but sometimes you get counters that are made from plastic, don't you? So see what you've got. I've got a little material ball here, okay? And then last of all, I've got a piece of blue tack. Blue tack is made from plastic. It's a squishy kind of plastic. Now, I've just got 6 bits to show you, but when you're getting your materials, you could get as many as you like. I think 10 is a good amount to test. And like I say, they can be anything that you want to test from around your home. Maybe check with your grown-up first whether they mind if it gets wet or not, because you're going to have to put it in some water to test it out. So maybe double check first, but try and find 10 different things that you'd like to test out to see if they float or if they sink. Now, in your home learning books, what you need to do is to make yourself a table, okay? And you can choose. You can draw it yourself. I've drawn mine here. Or you could get your grown-up to help you, all right? Your table needs to have 2 columns, 1 column, and that's where we're going to write all the things that float, and 1 column for where we're going to write all the things that sink, okay? Once you've got your bits and bobs and you've got your table set up, it's time to get investigating. So, you're going to take one of your materials or one of your objects at a time, and you're going to pop it in the water. And how will you know whether it sinks or floats? What will it do if it floats? Well done, it'll stay on the top of the water. And what will it do if it sinks? Well done, it'll go all the way down to the bottom, okay? Now, before you put each material or each object in the water, I'd like you to have a little guess. Now, the Clever Clog's name for this is making a prediction. Can you say that word? prediction. Well done. But all that means is that you're going to have a guess first about what you think is going to happen. So I've got a bit of blue tack here, and I think this is quite light and it's quite a flat look. So I think this is going to float on top of the water because I think something has to be quite heavy for it to sink to the bottom. So my guess, my prediction is that this one is going to float. Okay, shall we try it out? Shall we see? Ooh, here we go. What happened? Where did it go? It's all the way at the bottom. So what does that mean? Did it float or did it sink? It sunk. Now that's different to the guess I made. I guessed it was going to float, but it sunk. Does it matter that it's different? No, it doesn't matter at all. Don't worry, guys. If you make a guess about what something's going to do and it doesn't do what you guessed it would, that's okay. The fact that you've thought about it first, that's the clever bit. So don't worry at all if what actually happens doesn't match the guess that you made. Now, I need to record what I found out, don't I? So I found out that blue tack sinks. So I'm going to write that into my table. And where do you think I'm going to write it? Float side, sink side. Yeah, I'm going to write it on the sink side. But to help me keep it organised, this is where my maths is going to help me. I'm going to put it in a numbered list. So I'm going to use my numbers to help me organise what I found out. So the first object that sunk is the blue tack. Blue tack. Okay. Now, of course, you can just sound your words out. Use the sounds that you know to help you record your ideas, or ask your grown-up to help you with the spelling of your words. But because this is a mathsy understanding the world sort of job, I'm not too worried about your spelling, okay? You just do what you think. The most important thing is your mathsy and sciencey thinking today. Right, blue tack is done. Let's try the wooden counter. Have a guess for me first. Make a prediction. Is it going to float or is it going to sink? I think this one is going to float. And do you know why? Because pirate ships are made out of wood, aren't they? And they float on the water. So I'm going to make a guess that this one is going to float on the water too. Ready? Hey, look, can you see? Is it sinking to the bottom? It's floating on the top. It's staying on the top. So my counter floats. So I can write that into my table, and it's the number 1 counter. Hurrah! And it matched my prediction even better. Okay, shall we do another one? I've got my glass gem here. What do you reckon, guys? Float or sink? Let's use what we've learned so far. So we know that the blue tack sunk, and this is a similar shape to the blue tack, isn't it? But actually it's flat like the counter was, so maybe it will float on the top. I don't know. What do you think? Have a guess and then see if you can give a reason why. Why do you think that's going to happen? I think this one is going to sink because this is quite heavy, I think. I think it's too heavy to float on the top. I think it'll sink to the bottom. Should we test it? Ready, steady. Hey, it did. It's gone all the way down to the bottom. So I know that it sinks. So I'm going to put a number 2 here. And I'm going to write gem. It sinks. Okay, let's try my wooden elephant. Now we know that the wooden counter floated, didn't we? But this is a different shape and this looks a bit heavier. It's a bit bigger, isn't it? What do you think the elephant's going to do? Float or sink? Can you tell me why? Why do you think it's going to float or sink? Well done. Okay, let's test it out then. I think this is going to sink because it's bigger. It looks bigger than the counter. I think it will sink. Ready? Ooh, what's it doing? It's floating. Well done. It's staying on top of the water. It's floating. So, I guessed wrong, but does that matter? Doesn't matter. All that matters is that I had a big think about it. So, number 2 is the elephant. Okay, I'm going to put that it's made out of wood because do you think a real life elephant would float or sink? I think a real life elephant would sink, wouldn't it? Because they're so big and so heavy. I think it's just that this one's made out of wood. That's what's helping it to float. Okay, guys, you can see then what I'd like you to do for your mathsy understanding the worldy job today. Have a bit of an investigation, explore some different materials and objects, see which ones float and which ones sink, okay? Before you put them in the water, see if you can make a prediction, make a guess about what you think is going to happen. And then once you've found out what happens, record your results in a table for me, okay? Use your numbers to make a numbered list to help you to organise what you find out, okay? Once you've finished testing all your materials, you can see how many you've got in each group. Have a little look and see, can you spot any patterns in the kinds of materials that float and the kinds of materials that sink? Are there any objects in there that surprise you? Maybe you might find one that you thought was going to float on the top and it sinks like a stone to the bottom. Or maybe it might be the other way around. You might have one that you think, oh, well, that's definitely going to sink. That's so heavy. And it ends up floating on the top perfectly. See what you can find out, guys. And then record your ideas in a nice, organised way. I will be really interested to hear what you learn. Have lots of fun, guys. And I'll see you after lunch ready for this afternoon's jobs.